Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be diving into the life story of someone who has truly seen it all,
Yeah.
from growing up in apartheid-era South Africa
Mm,
to navigating the highs and lows of fame in America.
right.
It's a story about resilience, unexpected turns, and ultimately the search for meaning and connection
Yeah.
in a world that often feels isolating.
It's a fascinating one. What I think is so captivating about this deep dive is how it goes beyond a typical biography.
Right.
We're not just looking at events.
Mm.
We're looking at how those events shaped someone's perspective on things like forgiveness, success, and what truly matters in life.
Right, so let's jump right in.
Okay.
Imagine being born in a time and place where your very existence is illegal. This individual's parents, a black South African mother and a white Swiss father,
Mm-hmm.
they faced immense societal pressure and discrimination because of their interracial relationship.
Absolutely. It's hard to overstate the psychological impact of growing up in an environment like that. The constant threat of being separated from your family, the lack of role models who shared a similar background, and just the normalization of injustice.
Right.
All these things contribute to a very unique and challenging childhood.
And the stories about their mother's resourcefulness are incredible.
Yeah.
Just to avoid suspicion, she would dress as a maid when they were out in public, pretending to be her child's caretaker rather than their mother.
Wow. That image is so powerful, it speaks volumes about the lengths a parent will go to protect their child.
Yeah.
And just the constant fear and tension they lived with under apartheid. It's a stark reminder of just how pervasive systemic racism was during that era.
Absolutely, but the challenges didn't end there. The story takes a very heartbreaking turn when we learn about the presence of a stepfather,
Yeah.
Abel,
Mm-hmm.
and the domestic violence they witnessed as a child.
This is a really difficult part of their story to hear,
Right.
but it's crucial to acknowledge the impact of trauma, especially childhood trauma.
Yeah.
This deep dive gives us valuable insight into the cycle of abuse. Mm-hmm.
And how those early experiences can really shape our behavior and relationships later in life.
They describe the feeling during these violent episodes as impending prison time,
Wow.
which is just a chilling analogy that captures the sense of helplessness and dread. They talk about trying to disrupt the violence, using any strategy they could think of as a child to protect their mother.
It speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, even in the face of overwhelming adversity.
Absolutely. And then there's this chilling moment where they receive a phone call about their mother being shot by Abel.
Oh, gosh.
They instantly assumed the worst
Yeah.
and were plunged into this state of grief and despair even before knowing if she had survived.
That's anticipatory grief.
Yeah.
That gut-wrenching feeling of loss that can occur before a loved one is actually gone.
Right.
It's a testament to the depth of their love for their mother and the intense fear that gripped them in that moment.
Absolutely. And here's where the story takes an unexpected turn.
Okay.
Miraculously, the bullet missed the vital parts of their mother's brain. Wow.
She defied all odds and made a full recovery.
It's a moment of pure relief and joy.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the unexpected twists and turns that life can throw our way.
Mhm.
It highlights the power of hope, even in the darkest of times.
But even with their mother's recovery, the emotional scars remained.
Right.
They had to grapple with this intense anger toward Abel.
Yeah.
They describe it as a mixture of rage and helplessness.
It's so important.
Yeah.
It reminds us that healing from trauma is a process, not a destination.
Right.
It's not about simply forgetting or moving on, but
Right.
rather acknowledging the pain, processing the anger, and finding healthy ways to cope.
And what makes this even more complex is that they witnessed their mother's extraordinary capacity for forgiveness toward Abel.
Hmm.
And it forced them to confront their own feelings and grapple with what forgiveness actually means.
Forgiveness is such a multifaceted concept. It's
Yeah.
not about condoning the harmful actions, but rather releasing oneself from the burden of anger and resentment.
Right.
And it's a deeply personal process.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong answer.
They are very candid about the fact that their forgiveness will never reach the level of their mother's. It highlights the fact that everyone processes trauma and forgiveness differently.
Absolutely.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly.
What's important is the willingness to engage with those complex emotions, to explore the nuances of forgiveness, and to find a path towards healing that feels authentic to you.
Right.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about their career.
Okay.
They chased their dream of becoming a comedian, eventually landing a highly coveted hosting gig on a major American show.
Wow, good for them.
But achieving that dream wasn't without its challenges.
Right. It's fascinating how this deep dive reveals the paradox of success.
Yeah.
On the surface, they had achieved everything that they had set out to do.
Right.
But behind the scenes, they were dealing with intense backlash, public scrutiny, and even death threats, all while navigating the pressures of a very high-profile job.
It's almost a reflection of their childhood in a way.
How so?
Back then, they were an outsider because of their biracial heritage.
Right.
Now they're in the spotlight, but still wrestling with feelings of not belonging,
Yeah.
of not quite fitting in.
It speaks to a universal human need for connection.
Yeah.
It's this longing for acceptance and belonging that goes beyond external validation. It's a reminder that even those who seem to have it all can struggle with feelings of loneliness and isolation.
And there's this really poignant moment where they describe feeling completely overwhelmed by the pressure, ready to quit.
Yeah.
It was the support of their colleagues, their tribe,
Right.
that pulled them through that dark time.
It's such a powerful example of the importance of community,
Yeah.
of having people around you who understand your struggles, celebrate your wins, and offer a shoulder to cry on when things get tough.
It's a reminder that we're not meant to go through life alone.
Absolutely.
We need those connections, those relationships that provide us with a sense of belonging and purpose.
Yeah.
And that sense of connection became even more crucial as they navigated the complexities of fame
Right.
and the often isolating nature of success.
This deep dive really challenges us to think about what success actually means.
Yeah.
Is it about external validation, accolades, and achievements?
Right.
Or is it about something deeper, something more intrinsic?
And speaking of redefining success,
Yeah.
they talk about a profound realization they had after the pandemic.
Okay.
Shift in priorities that led them to make a radical decision. They realized that they had been prioritizing work above everything else,
Yeah.
including the relationships that truly mattered.
Right.
So they made this bold move and stepped away from their high-profile job, even with all the success that it brought.
That decision speaks volumes about their evolving definition of success.
Right.
I mean, they were actively choosing to step away from a situation that, on the surface, seemed to represent everything they had worked for.
Yeah.
You know, it's a reminder that sometimes letting go is the bravest and most empowering thing we can do.
And it wasn't an easy decision.
Right.
They talk about grappling with, this concept of loss aversion, that innate human tendency to cling to what we have, even if it's no longer serving us.
It's a powerful insight into the psychology of decision-making.
Yeah.
We often get stuck in patterns of behavior even when we know they're not beneficial, simply because change can feel daunting and risky.
Right.
But they chose to challenge that ingrained tendency and prioritize their well-being and relationships over external validation.
They use this really interesting analogy of a theme park experience.
Okay.
We often think that the excitement lies in the roller coasters, the main attractions, but they realize that a big part of the joy comes from the anticipation, the conversations with your friends while waiting in line, the shared experience of it all.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the friction,
Right.
the moments that force us to connect and be present.
That analogy really resonated with me.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that meaning and connection are often found in the unexpected places, in the spaces between the big events,
Yeah.
It's about savoring the journey, not just focusing on the destination.
Now let's dive into something deeply personal, their experience with depression and their later diagnosis of ADHD.
Okay.
They describe the diagnosis as this major turning point, finally understanding their lifelong struggles with focus, negative thought patterns, and feelings of meaninglessness.
Yeah, it's so important to highlight the connection between ADHD and depression,
Yeah.
particularly the impact of untreated ADHD on mood regulation and executive function.
Right.
This part of their story will likely resonate with a lot of listeners who might be going through similar challenges.
What's interesting is how they chose to manage their ADHD.
Okay.
They rejected medication in favor of mindfulness techniques,
Interesting.
focusing on observing their thoughts, not being their thoughts.
It's a powerful approach that emphasizes self-awareness and acceptance,
Absolutely.
recognizing that our thoughts and feelings aren't always accurate reflections of reality. And by simply observing them without judgment, we can create space for more helpful and empowering perspectives.
Their journey really highlights the importance of finding what works best for you.
Absolutely.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to mental health.
Right.
It's about exploring different options and finding the tools and strategies that empower you to live a fulfilling life.
It's about personal agency.
Yeah.
and recognizing that we have the power to shape our own well-being.
Right.
And sometimes that means challenging conventional wisdom and forging our own path.
Now, we've talked about their family background. We've talked about their career. But what about their personal life? What about, those deeper questions, those existential dilemmas that we all grapple with at some point?
Right.
They actually delve into their personal struggles with meaninglessness and their exploration of faith and spirituality.
What's so refreshing about their approach to spirituality is that it's so personal and nuanced.
Right.
They're not adhering to any rigid dogma or religious tradition. Instead, they're actively seeking, questioning, and trying to find their own truth.
They talk about how their mother's unwavering faith was a source of strength and comfort for her,
Yeah.
but they couldn't fully embrace it themselves.
Right.
Instead, they're grappling with their own doubts, their sense of wonder at the vastness of the universe, and the search for connection beyond the material world.
It's a reminder that spirituality is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
It's about finding what resonates with you, what brings you comfort and a sense of belonging in a world that can often feel chaotic and unpredictable.
And their curiosity extends beyond just spirituality.
Right.
They're constantly learning, seeking new knowledge and experiences.
Yeah.
They delve into philosophy, history, and even explore different forms of therapy to better understand themselves and the human condition.
That's what makes their story so relatable.
Yeah.
They're not presenting themselves as having all the answers. They're openly sharing their vulnerabilities, their struggles, and their triumphs, inviting us to join them on this journey of self-discovery.
They describe going to therapy initially out of a desire to learn more about themselves,
Interesting.
much like they embraced physical therapy to heal a physical injury.
Okay.
It's this perspective shift,
Yeah.
recognizing that our mental well-being is just as important as our physical health and deserves the same level of care and attention.
Absolutely.
And they're very candid about the stigma surrounding mental health, particularly for men.
Yeah.
They talk about how their friends would ask, "What's wrong?"
Right.
when they first started therapy, highlighting this societal expectation that men should simply tough it out and suppress their emotions.
It's so harmful.
By sharing their experiences,
Yeah.
they're helping to normalize conversations about mental health
Right.
and encourage others to seek help when they need it.
Absolutely.
It's a powerful reminder that vulnerability is not weakness, but rather a sign of strength and self-awareness.
It's about breaking down those harmful stereotypes and creating a space where people can feel safe to talk about their struggles and seek support without judgment.
And then there's the ADHD diagnosis, which
Yeah.
they describe as like this missing piece of the puzzle falling into place.
Yeah.
It explained their lifelong struggles with focus, impulsivity, and emotional regulation.
What's striking is how they don't view their ADHD as a limitation,
Right.
but rather as a different way of being in the world, a different way of processing information and experiencing emotions.
Yeah.
It's about reframing what might be seen as a challenge into a unique strength.
It's fascinating how they talk about rejecting medication and instead opting for mindfulness techniques to manage their ADHD. They focus on observing their thoughts and emotions without judgment, rather than trying to control or suppress them.
This speaks to their overall approach to life.
Yeah.
A constant seeking of alternative paths, challenging conventional wisdom,
Right.
and finding ways to empower themselves.
Right.
It's a message that resonates deeply, especially for those who feel like they don't fit into the traditional mold.
They make it very clear that their ADHD doesn't define them, but it does explain certain patterns in their behavior.
Right.
Their tendency to hyper-focus on some things while completely neglecting others.
Yeah.
And their challenges with emotional regulation.
This part of their story is incredibly valuable for listeners who might be struggling with similar issues.
Right.
It normalizes the experience of ADHD and offers hope that there are ways to manage the challenges and thrive despite them.
Now, let's shift our focus to their relationships.
Okay.
We've already touched on the importance of their chosen family, their colleagues, who became like a tribe. But what about their biological family? They reconnected with their biological father in their early 20s
Okay.
after years of separation.
It's interesting how they approached that reunion with a sense of curiosity rather than apprehension.
Yeah.
They weren't necessarily seeking answers or closure, but rather wanted to understand their father as a person, to see what parts of themselves they might have inherited from this man who played such a pivotal role in their existence.
They acknowledged that there was a part of them that craved their father's love and approval.
Yeah.
But they also realized that his absence had shaped them in profound ways,
Right.
both positive and negative.
This is a complex dynamic that so many people can relate to, that longing for connection with a parent who is absent, and the realization that even in their absence,
Yeah.
they have a lasting impact on our lives.
They shared a beautiful piece of advice that their mother gave them before they reconnected with their father.
Okay.
She told them not to take for granted the answers that their father might hold, answers that they might not even know they needed.
It's a reminder that our parents, even those who have been imperfect in their roles,
Right.
can still offer valuable insights and perspectives.
Yeah.
It's about approaching those relationships with a sense of openness and a willingness to learn and grow.
What's interesting is they describe learning valuable lessons from their father.
Yeah.
Not through direct teachings, but through observation.
Okay.
They talk about their father's enduring friendships,
Yeah.
highlighting the importance of maintaining strong connections throughout life.
This reinforces the idea that relationships are fundamental to our well-being.
Absolutely.
They provide us with support, love, and a sense of belonging no matter what stage of life we're in.
And what about romantic relationships? They're incredibly candid about the challenges of navigating love and intimacy,
Yeah.
while also juggling a demanding career and this whirlwind of personal growth.
They acknowledge that their work often took precedence in their life, leaving little room for romantic entanglements.
Right.
They talk about how they would prioritize work commitments over personal relationships.
Yeah.
A pattern that they're actively trying to change.
It's interesting how they describe their evolving perspective on relationships.
Okay.
They're moving away from the idea of a relationship as something that should complete them,
Right.
and instead embracing the idea of bringing value to a partnership.
It's about recognizing that a healthy relationship is built on mutual respect, support, and a shared desire to grow together.
Right.
It's not about finding someone to fill a void, but about choosing to share your life with someone who enhances it.
They're incredibly open about the fact that they're still figuring things out when it comes to love and relationships.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to admit their mistakes, their insecurities, and their desire for connection.
This vulnerability is so refreshing.
Yeah.
It challenges the societal expectation that men should be stoic and self-sufficient.
Right.
It allows us to see them as a whole person with flaws and vulnerabilities, just like the rest of us.
And speaking of vulnerability, let's talk about fatherhood.
Okay.
They're open about the fact that they go back and forth on the idea of having children.
Their hesitation is understandable given their own complex childhood and their awareness of the challenges that parenthood can bring. They're not approaching it lightly.
Yeah.
They're carefully considering what they want to offer a child and what kind of world they would be bringing them into.
They talk about wanting to give their future children two things:
Okay.
a sense of being chosen and a sense of being considered. It's about prioritizing their well-being, their individuality, and their needs above their own.
It's a thoughtful perspective that challenges the traditional power dynamics of parenthood.
Yeah.
They're emphasizing the importance of creating a nurturing and supportive environment where a child can feel loved, respected, and empowered to be themselves.
They also bring humor to the conversation,
Yeah.
joking about the challenges of potentially passing on their ADHD to their kids.
Right.
It's a way of acknowledging the realities of parenthood while also maintaining a sense of lightness and perspective.
This ability to balance serious topics with humor is one of their strengths.
Yeah.
It makes them relatable and approachable even when they're delving into complex and sometimes uncomfortable subjects.
And it seems like they're still figuring things out when it comes to fatherhood, just like they're navigating other aspects of their life with curiosity and openness.
It's a reminder that life is a journey, a constant evolution of self-discovery and growth.
Right.
We're all works in progress.
Yeah.
And it's okay to not have all the answers.
Now, before we move to the final part of this deep dive, there's one element we haven't explored yet,
Okay.
and it's central to their career path, their time hosting The Daily Show.
Right.
It wasn't an easy transition,
Yeah.
and they faced a lot of scrutiny and criticism, especially in the beginning.
You're right. That period was a true test of their resilience and their ability to navigate intense pressure. They were stepping into a role previously held by a beloved figure.
Right.
And the expectations were incredibly high.
They weren't exactly welcomed with open arms.
Right.
The show initially lost viewers. They faced some harsh criticism from some quarters and even received death threats.
It's a testament to their strength and determination that they persevered through all of that.
Absolutely. And it speaks to the incredible resilience we see throughout their entire life story.
Yeah.
They faced rejection and adversity early on. And it seems they developed this remarkable ability to navigate those challenges
Yeah.
and ultimately use them as fuel for growth.
Right.
They described this particularly vulnerable moment where they considered quitting,
Hmm.
feeling overwhelmed by the negative feedback and the weight of expectations.
Yeah.
And it was a conversation with one of their writers
Okay.
that ultimately helped them shift their perspective.
This highlights the importance of having a strong support system, a team of people who believe in you
Right.
and can offer perspective when you're struggling to see it yourself.
They talk about how their colleagues at The Daily Show became their tribe,
Right.
this found family who walked through the fire with them
Yeah.
and helped them find their footing.
It wasn't just about the work. It was about that shared struggle, the late nights, the laughs, the commiseration.
This brings us back to the theme of human connection,
Yeah.
that innate need to feel seen and understood, especially when we're facing difficult times.
Absolutely.
It's not about being perfect or having it all figured out.
Right.
It's about finding those people who accept you as you are, imperfections and all.
Absolutely.
Makes me think about those friendships in my own life.
Yeah.
You know, the people I can call at 2 a.m., the ones who celebrate my wins and hold my hand through the losses,
Those are the real MVPs.
those are the ones.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a really important point.
Okay.
Their decision to leave The Daily Show.
Right. It was a shock to many.
It was.
A move that seemed counterintuitive, given their success.
Yeah.
But it makes so much sense when you hear them talk about their reasons for leaving.
What's so compelling is their evolving definition of success.
Yeah.
You know, they're moving away from those external markers of achievement and focusing more on what truly brings them joy and fulfillment.
Right.
It's a powerful reminder that we have the power to redefine success on our own terms.
Absolutely.
They say something that really struck me. They said, I had made my life about work and made everything else secondary.
It's a trap that so many of us fall into,
It is.
especially in today's hyper-connected, always-on culture.
Absolutely.
You know, they realized that they were missing out on precious time with their loved ones,
Yeah.
on experiences that couldn't be replicated or replaced.
Right.
It's about recognizing that our time is finite, we can't do everything,
Yeah.
and sometimes we need to make difficult choices in order to live a life that aligns with our values.
They're very honest about the fact that they were initially scared to leave The Daily Show. You know, they worried about losing their platform, their sense of purpose, and the comfort of familiarity.
That fear is completely understandable.
Yeah.
It's tied to that loss aversion we talked about earlier. It's so much easier to stay in a situation, even if it's no longer serving us, than it is to step into the unknown.
But they also realized that staying in the same place for too long can be stifling, preventing us from growing and exploring new possibilities.
It takes immense courage to walk away from something that's brought you success and security.
It does.
What's inspiring is that they're choosing to embrace uncertainty,
Yeah.
to prioritize their well-being and their relationships over the fear of what might be lost. You know, they're betting on themselves, on the belief that there's more to life than just achievement and accolades.
So as we approach the final part of this deep dive,
Yeah.
we're left with this sense of admiration for their courage, their vulnerability, and their unwavering commitment to living a life that is both meaningful and authentic. You know, as we delve deeper into their story,
Yeah.
it's hard not to think about the bigger picture.
Right?
We've talked about their incredible resilience in the face of adversity, their commitment to personal growth, and their evolving definition of success.
Right.
But what does all of this mean for us right now?
Good question.
In this moment, what lessons have really stuck with you?
You know, I think one of the most striking takeaways for me is the emphasis on human connection.
Yeah.
You know, the idea that we're not meant to go through life alone. We need those supportive relationships, those friendships, that sense of belonging to truly thrive.
Right.
It makes me wonder, what role does connection play in your life today?
Yeah.
How has your understanding of it evolved over time?
And building on that,
Yeah.
we've talked about the power of forgiveness, the idea of choosing your own narrative.
Right.
It challenges us to question societal norms and redefine what success truly means.
Absolutely.
But how do we reconcile those concepts with, you know, the realities of life's challenges,
Right.
the unexpected turns?
It's a fascinating question because it forces us to confront the idea of choice, you know, and the impact of our experiences on who we become. It's easy to kind of romanticize the idea that, you know, our struggles make us stronger.
Yeah.
But what if we could choose a different path?
Right.
One that led to less pain and suffering?
Yeah.
Have you ever considered what your life might have been like had certain events unfolded differently?
They actually shared a really interesting perspective on that earlier.
Oh, yeah.
They talked about how society often valorizes the idea that everything happens for a reason,
Hmm.
suggesting that we should be grateful for even the most difficult experiences because they've shaped us into who we are today.
Right.
But they challenged that notion.
Okay.
They argued that while we can learn and grow from adversity, we shouldn't have to endure trauma or pain to become our best selves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that leads to a thought-provoking question for all of us listening. Instead of erasing the difficult experiences entirely,
Yeah.
what if you could rewrite the narrative?
Right.
Choose a different outcome, one that leads to healing and growth without the burden of suffering. What aspects of your story would you keep, and what would you change?
It's a really powerful concept.
It is.
It shifts the focus from acceptance to empowerment,
Yeah,
from enduring hardship to actively shaping our own narratives.
right.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
leave you with that question lingering in your mind.
Okay.
It's an invitation to reflect on your journey, your struggles, and your evolving definition of what it means to live a meaningful and fulfilling life.
And perhaps in the process of reflecting, you might discover new insights, new perspectives, new possibilities for healing, growth, and connection.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey.
It's been great.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep exploring the complexities of the human experience.